Hello everyone, my name is Michael and I'm speaking to you from the Verse. Now if you're not sure what the Verse is, I encourage you to go to my website at rewritingtheverse.com, and there you can find out all the information I am aware of about the Verse. There are several written updates on there, as well as every single one of my YouTube videos are on there as well. And you can peruse all sorts of, especially past life regressions. So I am a past life regressionist and rewriter, which means I have the ability, once I look through a past life, I actually have the ability to go back and rewrite the outcome, if it's warranted, to a higher level result. Now, what I'm doing specifically on YouTube lately is I'm using this ability to rewrite specifically twin flame timelines. Now, the reason I chose twin flames is because as we ascend, especially through these significant portals and astronomical powerful dates, these timelines pack an extra powerful punch. For whatever reason, they're helping us move through this ascension process and through these gates very effectively. So this specific video is connected to the upcoming March 3rd, 2020 portal, or 3/3/2020 portal. That's coming up in just a few days. Today is February 29th, so this is the leap day, and so we're only almost 3 days away from that powerful portal. And so this timeline that we're going to explore, this twin flame related timeline, was the one that my guides showed me as the one that needs to be utilized to get through this next portal. So, and at the end of this video, this full-length video, I will share the past life regression that I've already done with this timeline. And even though I now know basically what needs to be rewritten, I have not put that into place yet. I have found it very powerful to do it live on these videos so that you can experience along with me the powerful shift in energy on the video. So that's what will be towards the end of this video, and I really encourage you to stick around to see that and experience that with me. Now this timeline is already, I've seen a lot of different angles. This is definitely different than many of the timelines that I have done, especially because I will be sharing event in the distant past that I'm already aware of that's happened, and that this is actually tied to something that I already knew about. And so it's really bringing full circle a healing for this timeline that I started working on over a decade ago when I started working on part of this timeline. I'll share the details about that. So it's really, wow, it's going to be a doozy as far as the energy shift at the end. So, okay, so yes, this timeline, specifically a twin flame timeline, also divine masculine, divine feminine. If you're not sure where you fall, if you fall into either of those groups, I believe everybody does. So you are impacted by this, whether you realize it or not. And everybody is. This also means you are a twin flame for somebody else. You have a twin flame out there. Whether you're in communication with them or not directly is another thing. But are you connected to them throughout time and space? Absolutely. So let's go ahead and get started. I guess I'll start with the actual past life regression, what they showed me tonight, and I will interject as I feel called to about the older timeline that it's connected to. So we'll just dive in here. So when I first looked into a timeline, I asked approximately how far back in the past are we looking at? And this one is approximately 5,200 years old, which would be about 3,200 BC. And then I want to see basically what part of the world it's occurring in. And my understanding is that this is in the region, anyway, of what we now know as Jerusalem. So it's that part of the world, 3,200 BC. So it opens by me seeing a very flat looking deserty scenario with the exception of what I'm seeing right in front of me. There's no vegetation. There's nothing out there across this desert. We're pretty much at like the very, very far distance. I see like purple, maybe they were mountains or low or high hills or something, but they're even far in the distance. It's pretty flat and desolate. And the only trees and such that I see at all is right here where my vantage point is. There, and it's not even a grove of trees. And I would say, I'm not sure if they have juniper over there. It seems to me that they do, but if they don't, that's the type of tree that I would compare these trees to that I'm seeing in front of me. And again, it's not a grove of them close together. They actually kind of spread out a little bit over maybe a couple acres. Spread out here and there, a few patches of maybe some grass. I do believe there was a small spring there that provided a little bit of water for the trees that did exist there. But this was a very isolated patch of trees. So it's a very sparse oasis in this desert, okay? Which really didn't make much sense to me that they would even be there at all, those trees and such. But there they were. And I saw a man. He was seated leaning up against one of the trees, kind of in a lotus position, and very much what he looked like was that he was in some sort of meditation. His eyes were closed. He was kind of leaning back against the tree, but had a very pleasant look on his face, feeling, it seemed very good about whatever situation he was in. It took me a little while to figure out what he was doing there, how he got there, all that. He also was holding a lamb, a fairly newborn sheep lamb. He was holding it in his lap and kind of like petting it as if you were petting a cat or whatever. And he seemed just to have been there for a while and wasn't in any hurry to necessarily get up. It just seemed to me that he was very much enjoying his being out in nature kind of thing. And there were other sheep, full-grown sheep around him. Some of them eating what little grass there was, and the rest just kind of laying in the shade. And everything was very peaceful, okay? And like I said, I had a hard time figuring out why he was there, why he would have dragged his little flock of maybe about 20 sheep out into the middle of the desert. I didn't understand that. But he seemed happy about whatever was going on. So eventually what I saw was that he put the lamb down and he finally stood up, kind of, appreciated the last moments of being out in nature. And it wasn't the tree he was leaning against, but he walked over to another tree and walked into the tree. Okay. What I got was, it was basically like platform 9 3/4 from Harry Potter, that it was like some sort of portal into another space, that he just walked into the tree. And then he was within a space that had a spiral staircase that went down. And where it led to was a subterranean city. In fact, once he got not very far down those stairs, all of a sudden, once he got past a certain threshold, all of a sudden it just lit up beneath him. And it was a huge, huge underground city. Now, it's very different than the type of cities that we see here on the surface. This city glowed a golden orange color. Now, it wasn't from some either, sun or light source or whatever within the humongous cavern. It was actually the buildings, the streets, pretty much everything as far as the structures go were glowing this color. Yeah. And it was massive. I couldn't see how far the city went in all directions, but it was very, very large. My understanding is, now remember, this is 3200 BC. And my understanding is that village and the beings that lived there had already been there for about 12,000 years. So it was not a new city either, but they'd been waiting, apparently, for this particular moment in time. So I see the man, and this is not his first time visiting, and clearly he knows where he's going. He's connected to there. And he actually goes to a meeting where there's himself. At one end, it's like a big oval table. At one end he sits, and at the other end a woman sits. And then there's many people on both sides of the table. But clearly they're kind of the leaders of this group. And I believe the leaders of the actual city itself. Let's see. Just trying to debate, if it's time to share some of those older storylines yet. It took me a while to figure out the whole scenario that happened with the sheep and everything on the surface. So I will share now what had transpired that had that shepherd be there and how he ends up going down into the city. So it's my understanding that the leader of that city, the person who had been up on the surface, he was from that city. But these are not Earth humans. They look like humans. I mean, I couldn't tell, even looking at them around the table, that they weren't human. Regular humans like we look like here. But what I was told is they're not from here. Their original place was from Syrian. They are Syrians. They come from the Syrian star system. And now there's 3 at least significant stars. I'm not going to say I know all the details about Syrian, the Syrian system, but there's A, B, and C. The one that we see in our skies now, the one that's the brightest star, is Sirius A. I believe that's correct. And it's the brightest and the biggest in our skies because it is the star that's closest to our star system. Again, I'm just trying to figure out what to bring in from the old things that I know. Okay. From my older knowledge, I knew that it has been proposed that Sirius A and our own sun here are actually they're a binary system. They're sister stars. If that's the case, which I do believe, and it's written out there that it has been proposed anyway that they may be, we obviously then have a very intimate connection with any beings and anything about that star system intimately connected with our own. So when I went online just to verify what I thought I remembered, that it was a binary system, on that particular website, it talked about leap years. And I started this past life regression last night, pretty close to midnight. So I saw the significance of this being healed and rewritten on or very close proximity to this leap day, being the 29th. This is a leap day, our added day every 4 years, to help make up for the slight inconsistency in our Gregorian calendars. Okay? Well, what it said about leap years was, again, connected to the Gregorian calendars, that there's an overlay of 12 months and all the things that line up. And even with leap days added every 4 years to help make up for the inconsistencies with nature, basically, every 3,200 years we lose a day, according to what I wrote or what I read. We lose a whole day anyway, despite making those adjustments. And what it said was, if the theory of binary system were actually fully accepted, it would perfectly fit with whatever calendar that might look like. I mean, there would not be a need to adjust anything. There would be no lost days at all if you accept that idea that it's a binary system. So to me, that definitely, well, one, verified that I did hear right about the binary system, but it felt like, again, this happening on a leap day, that there's something about being out of sync in, well, time, again, we know is an illusion, but it's still a part of this overall matrix, and we have to still deal with that in some way. But it felt to me like the universe was letting me know that there is an out of sync energy. And if we're out of sync, it affects us. It affects us now. It affected us then. Okay. So that's a piece of information you need to know. There's more, but that's one piece of it. So now going back to, and I didn't get names for anybody, darn it. It's kind of easier when there's a name to refer to. Let's keep calling him the main guy, the sheep guy, the shepherd, whatever. What I understood was this golden city were people from the Sirian system. And they had relocated there, actually as refugees, and I'll explain why that was, 12,000 years prior to the timeline we're looking at here. And they came here for various reasons, but they definitely came here because they were part of helping lift the vibration of the planet, preparing the planet for a lot of the ascension process, and needing to heal this timeline too that connects to the Sirian past. So this man is Sirian, but something happened on the surface that I didn't see right away. This is why it was so confusing. But what I got was the sheep were because the man that I saw there was a sheep herder, or a shepherd, okay? He was an extremely spiritual man, maybe one of the most spiritual on the planet. And the reason he heard the call is what I got. That basically there was a spiritual call for him to bring himself, and of course, bring your sheep too, out into the desert there. And he followed the guidance, and he came upon these trees and stayed there until the man that was fully Sirian down below eventually came out of that tree. And they actually look fairly alike because they were aspects of the same soul. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that. If you're not sure about how you can be an aspect, I mean, this is really, let's just say that we have many incarnations at the same time in many different locations on this planet and beyond, and different dimensions, everything you can think of. And it happens, well, if you remove time completely, it all happens simultaneously. But if you put time in, it still means there's a lot of overlap in the different incarnations. So I'm going to interject here that I'm not pushing Star Trek, but this is an idea that they present in Star Trek that does have truth throughout the universe, which is the idea their prime directive is that if there's very specific circumstances, if you're an outside ET race, you are not allowed or supposed to directly interfere with a native race on a planet. You can possibly maybe do things from the outside, which I think that's the way, angels and lots of other beings that affects us right here. There's a lot of influence happening. But if they're following this prime directive, they're not directly coming in and taking over, or leading the people. They're encouraging and working with people through different means to move themselves, basically. So, for the Syrian man to come up onto the surface and go out to the people and lead the people directly would have been a violation of that kind of universal law. But if he had a human, then through that human, it requires the human persona to be kind of leading the way, I suppose. And because he had an aspect of himself that had gotten high enough vibrating to be able to not only meld their bodies, but also hold his higher level of frequency, then he could, through that human participation, get out there and make a direct impact on things. That's kind of confusing, but that's ultimately how this man shows up with his sheep, and they have an agreement that this is how it's going to happen. They will merge, and that human is voluntarily, allowing this to happen and wants to be a part of this overall mission. It's a mission. These Syrians have a mission here. So there is a merging of the two into one physical body. And so that's why the shepherd is walking down, but he's walking down after being merged with the original Syrian leader. That's confusing. This is really, there's a lot of details to this particular past life regression. So hang on. And I know this is kind of, I'm all over the place, but there's a lot of details that need to be included for people to understand. So that's how the sheep got there, the shepherd got there, and how he's walking down into this city, having this meeting with all these people at the table. My understanding was this was the last time he was going to be there with that group, because it was now time for the Syrian human and the shepherd to actually go up to the surface and start the physical part of the mission. This was the last meeting where all these people were around the table who would also. The plan was that once he gets up there and he starts the mission, that each one of these people around the table would also have some human aspect of themselves that would be ready to merge as well. So he wouldn't be up there by himself eventually, but in the beginning he was the first to go. So everybody at that table would eventually merge up there, and then ultimately it would lead to the completion of a mission. All right, this is the last time they're meeting. They say their goodbyes. He speaks specifically to the other person at the other end of the table because they are the leaders of this mission. And this is the last time they're going to see each other for a while, at least until she comes up in some sort of physical human form. But they do have a telepathic connection, that if there's any information that needs to be exchanged, they can contact each other telepathically. And so that's it. He, like the next day or whatever, he goes up to the surface. He's still going to take care of that flock of sheep. In fact, it was a good profession apparently to have. That way he would be able to walk and go to different locations, and people wouldn't think much. They just think, oh, he's a shepherd and he's got his flock of sheep, So he's able to roam around. And this is very much, from this point forward, this is very much, it looks very much like what we hear anyway, whether that's true or not, but what we hear about Christ's process of becoming more well-known and ultimately, leading to his own death. The same kind of idea, roams around, doesn't really have any permanent place, meets a few people on the way that, as we know now, are people that are a part of his team. And these humans, as they come in and they hear the story and they're drawn to it, and ultimately their vibrations are high enough to accept their own Syrian self to come in. one by one, those groups start to merge with their human aspect. But this is a part of him just going around again, spreading the news, right? Speaking to people, roaming around, sleeping under the stars. He's always got a sheep with him, though, because that's what he presents it. That's supposedly his career, his job. But we know ultimately he just needs to be roaming around and sharing and lifting people's energies, especially those that choose to follow him, like the disciples. Those are the ones that are aspects of his team in the underground city. Okay. Now it's time to okay. Please, try to stay with me. Now it is time to tell you about the old Sirian timeline that this is all connected to. What I worked on over a decade ago. And how it fits into this timeline that we're looking at now. So, I was aware of a timeline that was a catastrophic timeline from the past. And this timeline was specific to humans, even though it was occurring in the Sirian energy area and that system. Humans, as we know us here, is very much connected to that system. So I can't remember how many, probably hundreds of thousands or more years old this catastrophe was. I don't remember the details about that, but it's been a long time. And there were some planets there, and I believe Sirius B was like the sun, or so they're stars, right? The star that was like the main light source or whatever for these planets that there were people on, Sirian people. And the problem was, the issue that was going on at that time was you had purist Sirians, and I think they may have actually been on a different planet, but they're all close proximity, I guess. Purist ones. And then there were hybrid Sirians. And there were issues between the two because, well, if you're not, I believe the biggest beef was the people that were pure didn't want the hybrids around. For whatever reason, that wasn't a good idea to be a hybrid. And they had a lot of warring between them, or at least a lot of negative energy between them. And I believe it was the purists that weaponized the star that caused a much bigger reaction and explosion than they expected. That definitely ripped some of the planets totally apart, and then negatively impacted others, and it was catastrophic. And sorry. My nose is itching a little bit. So it definitely did a lot of damage. And it created there's been explosions and horrible things happening through the universe for a long time, but for the human race, as it was developing over time, this left a really deep scar in the racial memories, I suppose you want to call them. Now, also in the Sirian system, that I believe was a secret at the time anyway, there was a race being developed, purposely engineered, that would hopefully, their purpose in being was to bring peace to the universe. That was their main, maybe sole purpose of existing. They were called the Golden Ones. And so they were on, I think, a separate planet than the main ones in question, but close enough to actually really be hit hard by this explosion. So these Golden Ones, yes, that was their purpose. And I believe, from what I remember, because it has been a long time, what I remember is that they had genetics from every single race that existed at the time in the universe, worked into their programming so that they could interface with any of the groups out there and be able to have the ability to interact in a different way by their genetics. So this is what made them unique. They all had the same purpose, and it was like their own little collective, right? There was nobody else like them anywhere. They were all apparently there on whatever little planet it was that they were being created on. But when this catastrophe happened, they went two different directions. So they were one collective, and they were all pretty much in the same location up until that point. And then one group chose to go subterranean on that planet in an attempt to, survive. And the other half, or group, I don't know if it was fully half and half, but the other group left, escaped the actual explosion itself, but now they have to go, find somewhere else to be. And so, when that catastrophe happened, that's how things went. This one group was split into two. And now they have different trajectories and different missions. I mean, the mission itself of peace was probably always there, but now they're doing it independently. This is a twin flame past life regression. And the two twin flames are, this original Syrian man, before he became the shepherd, that leader was the leader of that group, which I believe all of those people were probably, big city, all of them were probably from descendants anyway. I'm not saying they were all 12,000 plus years old, although I'm not ruling that out because timelines, aging in other places is totally different. And the light that was coming out of the structures in that subterranean city was Syrian light. The same vibration and whatever that this Sirius A, which is now, that's the one we see in our skies. That's the light that they're in down there. Who knows how that affects their aging? I guarantee you they're not living only, less than 100 years like we do. They really could be more than 12,000 years old. So we'll just leave that open as I don't know. But he was the leader of that group, the group that left. His twin flame, again, I did not get any kind of name or anything. My understanding is she led the group that went subterranean in the Sirian system. And that they have not been physically together in those forms since the incident, however many hundreds of thousands of years ago. It wasn't just 12,000 years ago that happened. It's way in the past, but they had not been able to be together because they have their own independent, whatever they're working on, to try to really heal that very ancient wound, that catastrophic timeline. So there's our twin flames, okay? And I think I gave you enough information now to understand who they are. These are the golden ones, okay? How they got there, basically, and why on earth they're coming to the surface now. My understanding is they were coming to the surface because they were getting closer, probably within a year or two. I mean, it's still a little bit in the distance, but they know that there's a certain alignment that happens between the Sirian system and our sun and our system that is extremely powerful. There's something about that alignment that would give the most, highest result of them completing the mission on that day. Really. And so it was time for them to start to come to the surface. Plus, they were finally having aspects of themselves getting high enough vibrating to make these unions. So it's all culminating to the point where there's this an alignment with Sirius. Okay. My understanding is right now, today, this is the leap day, February 29, 2020, and leading up to 3/3/2020, that portal, is the window of the alignment of Sirius again on this planet. We're really only about 3 days away now from this alignment. So that is why this is coming in right now as the particular timeline that we needed to look at. Now, when I was looking at the binary, all that stuff, and realizing once again we're out of sync, what I realized was, or what I was told, was that we're 3 days off. 3 days out of sync with what at least our calendars have indicated. In other words, we weren't in right timing. Probably weren't then completely, or maybe we were, but it was ultimately stopped. But something about, again, calendars weren't quite accurate. So the true date of this power is going to be on March 3rd. Okay. All right, let's get back to the actual unfolding of this story. So what I saw was, again, a continual unfolding of a very similar life to the Christ energy. In fact, I believe this group, probably because it is so similar, these are probably aspects of souls that were the same group in the Christ lifetime. I'm just going to say that I think it's basically the same energetic group. And I've talked about that in other videos about soul groups coming back together repeatedly, trying it again. And so this was an earlier attempt to do what we understand the Christ lifetime, Jesus Christ lifetime. This was an earlier attempt to do something very similar. In fact, what I believe is the Christ lifetime was also trying to do the in sync thing with Sirian. I think it really, it's tied to that. Because, well, if these are golden ones, then that means the Christ group, Christ Jesus group, was also an aspect of golden ones as well. Okay, don't want to get too convoluted, but this is why this timeline is playing out very similarly. People coming together, disciple type of people coming in and supporting and vibrating up, because now we know their golden one selves are connecting with them. And we're getting up towards, like we would say, around the same idea of what happened with Christ, where he is actually like turned in or captured or whatever and ultimately killed off. What I got with all of this is, remember, there's 3 days difference between the crucifixion for Jesus Christ and the day that he resurrects. And that the resurrection day may very well have been the right day, or the day that they were working towards. 3 days difference. Just saying. So, and just like in the Christ lifetime, there was a Judas. Okay. There was a person in the group that ends up betraying them in the end. What I was told is this Judas person in this round was like a Manchurian candidate. If you're not sure what that is, my very brief definition of that is somebody who at some point was manipulated, mind controlled, in some way programmed to with a certain trigger word or a certain trigger, go from their, what would you say, their normal personality with that trigger will all of a sudden be able to be remotely or whatever controlled and do things that could be extremely dark. What I understand is, yes, the Judas character, he was a golden one as well. But someone, and my understanding is it was actually back in the very early days of the creation process of the golden ones, somebody had programmed this into him. In fact, what I was told, because each of these groups, there's multiple groups out there like this one. Many groups of these golden ones out there. My understanding is that every single one of these groups has a Manchurian candidate in it. And the reason why they can't really be found out about unless you know ahead of time what happened, they are one of the most, brightly shining or committed or what, you wouldn't be able to tell when they weren't triggered that they were that they could do dark stuff like that. And so they're like implanted into each one of these groups, apparently to sabotage and work against their purpose. And so that means Judas and the Jesus Christ timeline would have also been another version of that. So within this golden ones timeline that we're looking at through 3,200 years ago, there is a Judas, or there is a Manchurian candidate that gets triggered, turned on at some point. My understanding is very much towards the end of the storyline, and he betrays. And in this version, he sells out the shepherd. Just as everybody's lifting in vibration, this is about to, when we get that special day of the alignment, everything's going to, say, explode in a good way, vibrationally for this group. And it is meant to be utilized to heal and unify, especially the golden ones, and move powerfully forward on their purpose, their mission. Well, again, about 3 or 4 days, about 4 days or so before that big day is about to happen, he gets triggered. Wasn't sure how, but somehow he's activated, and he ends up turning them in somehow. I believe it was the historical assassins that you can find out about in the history, that it was them that were either hired basically to kill the shepherd, or they may have been some of the dark ones that were behind all that, one or the other, but those were the ones that actually killed the shepherd. Very much, actually, I believe it was some sort of a crucifixion, but I saw more the X kind of crucifixion, wood planks or whatever in an X and crucified that way. But either way, same basic result. He's crucified, killed before they can get to the finish line. And it, once again, disrupts and has the mission fail, basically. Just trying to gather my thoughts here from the different directions and see if there's anything else to say about the timeline, because that's pretty much how it ends. Mission fails. When he dies, before that significant date, the entire mission fails. And I do believe that the Christ lifetime was another attempt. Maybe not the very next one, but it was another attempt for this, basically the same outcome. And that one failed. That one failed too. All right. So, as I said earlier, I have been given the basic information about what needs to change in that timeline. And when we heal that back then, it will not just heal then, it will heal right now, because right now I'll share with you validation of this timeline that I got just a little bit ago, actually, that this is very much happening right now. We are in the exact same energy, exact same, energy and time, because this was, today the leap day was 4 days before the 3rd. And the activation of the Manchurian candidates right now in the current groups and the current incarnations that we are in were activated tonight. So I started doing the past life regression, like I said, shortly before midnight last night. So I've had pretty much all of the regression itself in mind all day, because I got that much, but I couldn't get the rewrite to really show itself as to where would be best to intervene and all those things. So I have picked up information over the day. As far as what I needed to do, by the time I sat down now a couple hours ago to get clarity on it, I already knew that an activation was about to happen. I knew that. How I was going to impact that, I wasn't sure, but I knew it was about to happen. I got home, because I was out today. I got home, and I was getting, into my space here to be able to get the last pieces of information, and I saw that I had a call that I didn't know that I got the call 20 minutes earlier from a dear friend of mine who's very spiritual, who had just, I'm going to say, maybe only 20 minutes earlier, had an extremely, and she recorded it, an extremely strange signal show up while she was in her car, actually. The car was turned off, the radio was off, there was nothing projecting the sound that she could tell, but she recorded it though on her phone, so I got to hear it. It was clearly a signal of some sort, and I knew, the activation has already been sent out to the Manchurian candidates. I knew it. I knew that's exactly why she needed to experience that, so that I would know, that it was too late at least to block the signal, the original activation signal. It's too late. So I was thinking I might be able to do that. It's too late. So what I did end up doing, though, and I won't go into details about exactly what I did, but I was able to, I believe, disrupt the communications as far as, wow, the word that just came to me, so I'll just tell you, the kill call. In other words, they were activated, but they hadn't been given exact instructions yet of what and who they were going to take out and how. Now, granted, in this lifetime, hopefully nobody was really going to be killed physically. But can missions be stopped in other ways? Killing things in other levels? Absolutely. And I knew that I had to work fast to keep that communication from being received, which I believe I was able to do. Otherwise, my understanding is if it had gotten to that level where they'd gotten the instruction, it may have been too late. It was a very tight timeline. Anyway, I do believe I was able to stop that communication. So, what is the rewrite? What I understand is we get this, that in the rewrite, a certain level of understanding is also happens on that 4th day. They're aware that some sort of activation happened. They may not, and I'm talking about the shepherd, and I'm talking about the lady in the city or whatever, that communication. Somehow they're made aware, tipped off in some way that this is about to or is happening. And so there's two things to this rewrite. But I'm going to do both at the same time, because once it starts, we're going to immediately feel the shift. Yes, part of the rewrite is that they're going to block, just like I did tonight. They're going to block them from being able to receive the instructions. But the other half of it is it's time to activate the golden ones. Now I'm recording this shortly before midnight. I'm in Central Time Zone here in the US. Before midnight my time. Golden ones are going to send out their own activation and their own instructions. Now granted, since there's a communication block with the others, they're not even going to necessarily know anything of what the golden ones are doing at this point. And they really only need to stay out of communication until we get past March 3rd. After that, it won't matter. Because this is what they're trying to block. They're trying to keep us from doing what we came to do in unifying, well, the sun and Sirius A, but all the system that surrounds them. And this is going to actually heal that original catastrophe, I believe, as well, or something about that is going to be healed, at least for the golden ones. And then they can do what they were always meant to do, which is to bring peace to the universe. They have not been able to live out their full destinies. Well, now, I'm starting to get a little energy on this because we're about to actually put this in a rewrite. Let me sit up a little bit. Now, with the danger at bay, we will powerfully be able to move in these next 3 days into full alignment with the Sirius B connect, or Sirius A, whatever, the alignment between Sirius and our system. And that actually, okay, here's the other piece of what's going to happen. Remember I said there were two different Sirian groups. By healing all of this, it unifies those two groups once more. And what I'm getting is those groups that are not here, or that group that is not here yet, they do have aspects on this planet. And once we heal this, they too can fully enter their human aspects. So not only is that group that's here already, that's been here, will they be able to fully step into their aspects and fully live out their purpose here on this planet, but those others will join them at the same time. This entire planet. Just a huge lift in vibration is about to happen. And this isn't the end of their mission. You get this. This was the end of a mission to get them in position to do what they're created to do. So it's really the beginning of the golden ones living out exactly what they were created to do. Very, very exciting. Very exciting. So, when we do this rewrite, it's twofold. Back 5,200 years ago, the two leaders that were here in this city here on this planet will consciously block the Manchurian candidates from any further communication from at least the negative groups or the negative force behind it. And all Manchurian candidates within those groups will be affected because they're all connected energetically anyway. So it will block them from doing whatever sabotaging they were supposed to do. So that's the first part, but it's all going to happen simultaneously. And then the second part is calling forth the golden ones, activating them fully. And the instructions are, what are they? I'm just creating this in the moment. In fact, when I speak it, okay, that's what I'm getting. Once I speak it in full, it will rewrite. Okay? So this right now, as I speak this, is going out, is activating and calling forth the golden ones. And it is the shepherd guy that is going to call them. So he's setting out the signal right now of activation. Boom, right now. It's going out so that they're all like, being turned on basically right now, no matter where they're at, including the group back on in the Sirius system. They're getting the call too right now, all at the same time. It is time actually, they're saying the mission is complete. I didn't know that. The mission is complete because the dark was stopped. The mission is complete. And it is time to step into their full form. And that their avatars, being their human aspects, are ready. This is 3200 BC. They are ready. It is time. They are ready. Something with, I'm trying to get the right words here. It's time to come home. It's time to come home. That old planet, that's not where they're meant to be anymore. Earth, for now anyway, for then and now, is their home. They're being called forth. So actually the next 3 days, they'll have time to integrate into their human selves. And by the 3rd of March, stepping into their destinies. This is when the energy's starting to lift right now. 3/3/2020 equates to the same vibration back then, and the destinies will begin. So come home. Humanity is ready. Humanity is ready. Because again, without, and this is rewriting right now, it's out there now, it's been spoken. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. Okay, now I'm starting to feel the energy. Starting to affect my vision a little bit. This isn't just about the golden ones. They're not taking over. They can't, they won't. It's not a part of the universal law. Humanity had to get to a level of being able to do this themselves and making their own choices. Their own choices about participating in this level of spirituality. And they did it. They did it right now. They did it right then. So 5,200 years ago, this is all shifting. This is all shifting right now. Then, and the Syrians from Sirius are on their way. I don't think they all have to pile into a I don't think they have to pile into a spaceship to come. I think they have ways of teleporting pretty much very quickly. So they're all coming. In fact, I just got this right now. That city, it was huge. And it was big enough for the entire group. It was made that way because they were eventually meant to come. But apparently they couldn't do it until this alignment with Sirius and our sun, along with just it made no sense for them to come if they couldn't come up to the surface anyway. But for whatever reason, this is what has them be able to come and be fully unified together again as the golden ones. And definitely by March 3rd, 2020, they will all be unified with their human aspects that are ready. There's no forcing this, but at least one of their aspects on this planet is ready and willing and able to have this merge. And now, I know we haven't mentioned it very much in this whole past life regression, but his twin flame can now come and be with him here. They couldn't be together, not at this level, until now. I feel like a wave of energy. It's a little different than what I usually feel, but there's energy. Hiccup. That is one of the things that I see as confirmations when I hiccup for no apparent reason. It's confirmation. Whatever I just said or thought, what did I say? All this is happening. Now I'm starting to think about, I will have a short highlights video that I'll record right after this and post it about the same time. And I'm now starting to think about, what am I going to say on there? What's the big takeaway of this? Destiny. Not just destiny for the gold ones, but destiny for humanity. We're being lined up right now. Oh, and I will say that today is Saturday. Approximately a week ago, I felt a shift, and I now know that it was connected to this upcoming portal, and a shift for the higher vibration. I really couldn't explain exactly why. All of a sudden there seemed to be a lift, but I wasn't arguing, and it's been very powerful all week. Well, I believe it's because we're already starting to get in alignment with Sirius. And I keep, even though it's an elliptical, kind of binary, I keep doing, I'm seeing it for myself in the video, I keep doing this infinity sign between the two planets. There's way more than just a couple planets going on here. Such a deep connection. It is a binary system. We're intimately connected with Sirius and its system and its people. And we are now unified at a whole nother level. I guarantee you many of the people that weren't golden ones in that situation, but were living on those other planets that got messed up in that catastrophe, those people are also on this planet right now. They're also experiencing this feeling, and they may also be experiencing all the terror and negative energy that they experienced in that catastrophe. Well, all this is somehow healing all of these people. And it's lifting this planet, and it's lifting us energetically up through this upcoming portal and on up the ascension ladder. Destiny. It's time. It's time for us to step into our destinies. The last major blockage, maybe, is what we saw tonight, was neutralized. And will stay neutralized, by the way, for the next three plus days. Once we get past the portal, then they won't be oblivious anymore, and it'll be too late. Too late to stop what's already starting. Whew. So I will add the link below to the short highlights video, and I encourage you to watch that. I mean, you got pretty much all you need to here, but you're always welcome to watch that as well. And please like, share, and subscribe. And definitely I invite comments. Let me know what you thought of this. I love it if people want to share like how they feel this might have impacted their life. If they see something or experience something to confirm. I love confirmations. So please reach out and do whatever you can to help share my readings, my channels. Go to the website. You can also subscribe on rewritingtheverse.com. And let's get these kinds of messages out there to the world. There's so much amazing stuff happening. And I appreciate you. And until next time, peace and joy.